Welcome to another episode of 10xMarketer podcast. Our guest today is Mike Brevik, a branding and marketing expert with around 3 decades of experience. He's the founder of Cyberdogz Marketing and love to call himself the Chief Marketing Officer. Mike has helped startups and big companies grow their brand through his unique approach to cultivating partnerships and relationships. If you want to build a seven-figure agency that grows on its own, then Mike's experience and insights from today's episode would be really helpful for you. He has worked with top brands like Nike, Jordan, Under Armour, and Harley Davidson. Mike knows how to define a brand's identity and create real connection with the customer. One of the striking thing about Mike is his branding and ambience of his home office come studio. We will discuss with Mike about that as well. Welcome, Mike. Why don't you quickly introduce yourself and then we'll get to the questions?
Yeah, thank you. My name is Mike Brevik. I am the owner and chief marketing officer of Cyberdogz Marketing. And yeah, as you mentioned, I'm a big branding guy, and that's what we kind of focus on at Cyberdogz. We lead with that kind of that branding and that overall creativity and design mindset. So obviously, in kind of setting up my home office, it was, you got to surround yourself with your brand, and you have to make sure that you're well represented. And for me, it's, kind of having, not only the logo, but the color orange and just the attributes around the brand just kind of be part of my overall working space. So.
So, Mike, the first thing that any branding guy ask you, or like you ask to your customer, is what was your vision? So, I would start with a similar question. What was the initial vision behind starting your agency, and how that evolved over the time?
I think it was a couple things. Personally, it was, I just wanted to have fun. I wanted to lean heavy into the creativity, and I wanted to do things that mattered, and I wanted to just kind of dig into the enjoyment, side of having to, go to work every day. So I wanted to kind of create an environment and a model around that. And I think professionally, how we did that is we married that idea with this idea of really focusing on purpose and relationships. So upon the onset of starting Cyberdogz, that was one of the biggest things that, I kind of accepted from day one. It was that it was going to be a slow and grow model, and that I was not going to compromise my vision and my commitment to relationships and purpose. And we just kind of set out to do that. And to be honest, it's a little bit of a foreign concept in the agency world, and I think it's kind of hard for some people to wrap their minds around. But slow and steady wins the race. And as we've continued to kind of grow the company and adopt that mindset and find more like-minded people who accept that, it's working. And I think we're making an impact, and we're finding people that fit that model. So.
So, Mike, you talked about people, and that's the core of any business, including the agency business. How do you really make sure that the purpose or the brand vision aligns both with the team members and the clients you're working with?
You know, it's tough because it's not something you just set out and do. It's trial and error. It's two steps forward, one step back. But I think it starts and ends with me. I think I really have to be the example. So, like, as we've built the team, for example, um, I've had to make sure that there's nothing that I would ask my team to do that I haven't done myself or am still doing myself. So there's kind of things around that to kind of find people that fit our model, and to really be transparent about it is the other thing. That, yes, we're here to, take care of clients and make money and do these different things as an agency, but at the same time, I have to stress the importance and kind of prove to them that the vision, the direction, and the commitment to all that matters more than the money. It matters more than, cash grabs and those kinds of things. So as far as the team goes, like, um, that slow and steady commitment to that, I think has, the pressure has been on me to find those kinds of people. And then as I found those kinds of people, they've been able to help kind of represent that to the new hires and and to the people that came after them. From a client perspective, yeah, I mean, similar process, but sometimes it's saying no. Sometimes it's turning clients away, even though, like, as an agency, you could use the money, but I know that if I take the money and if I take that project, if I take that client on, it's going to compromise my vision. It's going to compromise my direction. It might even set me back in the long run. And, I have to weigh those options and make those decisions sometimes to make sure that we're staying on our path. And that's every day. I mean, that happens every day that we have to kind of make those tough choices. But then also on the inverse, sometimes we have to make the choices where, as an agency, we're just going to do the right thing. We're going to take care of the client. We're going to make sure that, regardless of profit, we need to make sure that this client is taken care of, whether they understand what we're doing for them or not. So there's a lot that kind of goes into that compromise from, our commitment to that impact and that purpose and that culture to what maybe the client is perceiving as agency behavior. And again, it's a battle that we're winning, but it takes time.
So you talked about battle, and you also talked about the slow grow approach that you have. uh, One of the thing that happens when you grow is compromising on culture. And when you have a lot of team members, or when you start expanding, team members or individual have their own culture, they're coming from certain background. So how do you really stay core to your purpose, and then reinforce these values within your team?
It's tough. I mean, for one, you have to be super transparent. You have to make sure that you're wearing this Cyberdogz culture on your sleeve. You have to represent it accurately. And as the leader, as the owner of the company, they're looking at me. So I have to make sure that I am the gold standard, or as much as I can be, are the gold standard of the brand, the culture, and what this needs to be. And then there's a process of teaching and education and reassurance and, kind of making sure that they understand that, we're kind of carving a new path here, and we're cultivating a new kind of a new culture within the agency world. And it's tough because when I bring on or work with other people from other agencies, they naturally bring some of that baggage with them, and some of this experience and the different things that they've done. They would like it to just apply because that feels easy. But at the same time, it's like, oh no, we don't do it like that. Here's why. And we have to work through that together and kind of help them understand. And they're the team members and even clients, they're very receptive. They just sometimes think, oh, well, I just thought that's the way it was done. And it's like, well, it can be done that way, but we're not doing it that way. So it's just a process of communication, and it's just something we're always dealing with. So we're kind of used to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, true. So there, you talked about letting a client go if it is not fitting in your overall agency objective or the growth objective. How do you really stay true to this? Because sometimes the challenge is the team is expecting a lot of growth. There is pressure from the revenue targets. You also want to expand your revenue and agency size. Then certain clients looks very important, but they are not really fitting. So how do you really stay focused there? Because sometimes it's slightly difficult for an agency, specifically the owner, to letting go the money that is coming in, because it's very very important for us to stay on the growth path.
Yeah. Um, this is going to sound a little woo, but if you focus on the people, the relationships, and the commitment and the dedication to delivering, you know, the best work possible, and if you focus on all those things and making sure that you have a very healthy existence with your clients and with the work that you're doing, the financial part completely takes care of itself. I mean, I can look at the spreadsheets and I can track the numbers and I can, assess to a degree, where we're at in the sales process and retention and all those things, but I have no control over any of it unless I focus on the people, the good work, and the different things that we're doing. And it really does just naturally take care of itself. And I think the proof is in the pudding to some degree, because throughout the years, I mean, we're in our ninth year as Cyberdogz, and we've probably, broken up with 5 or 6 clients in 9 years. And we have clients that have been with us for, 5, 6, 7 years straight uninterrupted. They're retainer clients, and they've just worked with us for that long. And we have another, I'd have to count them, but I mean, we're talking hundreds of clients that just come and go when they need stuff, but they always come back to us. So our retention and our retention is through the roof, and our churn rate is almost non-existent. And what does that have to do with chasing spreadsheets, sales? Absolutely nothing. It has everything to do with taking care of the client and trying to hit home runs and deliver very high quality work. So I think it's working, and it's a different mindset, because even like you mentioned, like when we bring in people that maybe have had previous agency experiences or even business experiences, it's hard for them to trust that right away, because they want to go, oh, okay, so you're saying if we're really good at the X, Y, and Z and take care of the customers, then the sales just happen. And I'm like, yep, that's exactly what I'm saying. Yep, because we don't have a sales team. I mean, our sales team is me and whatever referrals and good work we put out in the world, and hopefully it boomerangs back to us.
Awesome. So one of the striking thing about Cyberdog's growth is its strong partnerships and relationships. Uh, is it something? Is there a secret sauce to this? Do you look for some qualities in your potential partners before actually starting that relationship? How do you really define it initially that it always grows into a successful one?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a couple things, and to each their own. I want to throw that out there too. Like, other agencies can do what they want, and I don't really care what they do. But for me, it's different. And in my experience, what I've seen with, like, in partner relationships, is everybody's worried about what you can do for me. What can you do for me? And maybe I'll consider this partnership. What can you do for me? And for me, it's like, my first question is, what can I do for you? Like, I obviously see something in you, and I see an alignment. Maybe it's just a connection professionally, that maybe we have the same perspective on business, something like that. But my first thing is, I want to know what I can do for you, because I want to know that I can take care of my end of this relationship. I want to know that you know that that I'm offering something as well. And then, if they're open to that, and if they're picking up what I'm laying down, and we're seeing the same things, it comes pretty naturally. And they'll even graciously accept my offer with, well, actually, I could use some help with this. And then once that starts, the relationship just naturally forms from there. But I really try to lead with what I can do for them first, and then, kind of assess things from there. And if you want to, talk business, it's a leverage point. Like, if I can be the first one to offer up something, and, bad word, but if they're somewhat indebted to my mindset, and all of a sudden, I've got that leverage, it does help my positioning in that relationship. But make no bones about it, that my goal is to just find like-minded people and collaborate with them. No strings attached. Let's do some cool things, and let's find out how we can, kind of benefit each other, with this idea of, all ships rise with the tide. So
Awesome. So this is very interesting and unique. And for the purpose of my audience, it would be great if you can explain the entire process of your partnership building with an example or a story that you truly relate to.
yeah, I won't name the company, because they're a national chain, and I don't know if they would want me to. But, like, I have a printing source that I work with, and I had spent probably, I'm ballparking here, but maybe the first 4 or 5 years roughly of Cyberdogz, looking for a partner. Like, I was outsourcing different projects, and, helping clients kind of find that end result all over locally my area, and I probably worked with half a dozen to a dozen different printing companies that could fulfill everything from business cards, printing high run brochures or flyers to swag and apparel. And over time, and let me back up. Part of the reason why I did that as well is because I wanted to find a way to see that experience all the way through to the end. Because typically, what would happen is if I did all the creative work and whatnot, I would turn over those files to the client, and then the client would go make the decision on what they wanted to do with it or who they wanted to print with it. And no offense to the client, but most of the time they would choose wrong. They would choose based on price, they would choose based off of how cheap a product is, whatever. And us being in the marketing world, we're closer to it. We've had experiences with different papers, different apparel companies. Like I inherently over time I just know more about this stuff than some of my, random clients do. So the idea for me was, well, let's use that to our advantage and let's see this process all the way through to the finished product. So point being was that I wanted to do that in the printing space. I wanted to do that with my apparel swag type customers. So I just I dabbled. I tried on different solutions, tried on different partners. I challenged their mindsets to see if they had the same level of commitment as me to the clients. We negotiated pricing. Like I was speed dating for the first 4 or 5 years with these companies to try to figure out if it was possible, but if so, who would I align with? Well, eventually I got to, I had found an apparel, like a swag promotional type company. And then I also found a printing company that I thought were good fits, but it was tough because they're big companies, they're national companies. And I don't know that at the time I was like, I don't know if they're going to want to play ball with me or not. So I invited my point of contact at both of those places. I took them out for lunch and coffee and whatever it was. And I said, here's the deal. Um, I don't want to shop around anymore. I want commitment. And I have a lot of work and a lot of clients that come through my door throughout the year. I just want to know that I'm partnered with somebody who's going to take care of these clients the way I would. And here's kind of my terms. And here's the desired outcome for me. And for me, that would be that you and I commit to each other. And, if there's some kind of and I will add this in, these clients both said yes. And they both came back with, we'll go ahead and do that. And then you can charge whatever you want to the clients. And I kind of asked the question, I'm like, well, are you implying like that I mark it up from what you give it to me for? And they said, yes. And I said, so how much markup do you think is acceptable? And both of these companies said, yeah, 10 to 15%. And I said, okay, well, here's what I want then. I want a 10 to 15% discount on everything I send to you so that I can have my clients pay street level pricing. And they're like, but Mike, you can upcharge it. And I'm like, but I don't want to upcharge it. I don't want to make money, extra money. I don't want to gouge my clients. If you're telling me 10 to 15 is acceptable, then you should be able to take that hit on your side because of the commitment, because of the relationship. And then my client pays street level pricing. That's to me fair. And both these companies went back and had to talk to their higher ups or whatever it was, and they came back to me and they said, yeah, we'll do it. So like that's an example of how I've done those negotiations in the past. And that was, we're going on 4 or 5 years for a couple of these relationships, and we're still doing it the same way. And it works for them, it works for me. I've got a partner in the business now that I can lean on, not only in everyday, the passing of work and whatnot, but when I'm in a pinch. All of a sudden we have a relationship that's beyond just this transactional thing where if I get in a pinch and my client says, hey, I need this by Friday, and to be fair, they put me in a bad spot. They didn't send it to me till Wednesday, or okay, let me see what I can do. Then when I call that partner who I've had the relationship with now for 5 years and say, I know this is unideal, but here's the situation, they take care of me because we have a relationship. And that's why relationships matter.
Awesome. So, I'm just trying to imagine, and it looks like a very complex structure or a wave of relationships with lot of clients and the vendors and the companies that support you in your process and vision. Do you use any tool or software to maintain all this data and the communication, or is it how is it done?
Yeah, we have a series of tools that we use to track and manage projects, from invoicing to straight up just project management to communications with vendors to, like, we've never really found one tool that does all things. So we have probably five or six different tools that require us to do that, and a lot of it, we're probably 2 to 3 years into trying to get it all out of my head, because for the first, five-ish, six-ish years, I was just running a lot of that stuff, based off my own experiences in business and whatnot, and just pulling it out of my head. So now that the team has grown and, we've got a lot more people involved, we're really trying to build out an operations side and build out kind of the, the historical logic as to why we do some of these things.
All right, so my next question is related to the team only.
Sure.
How what is your organization structure, and how do you build the leadership within your team that can take care of things when you are not there?
Again, this is, no offense to the other agencies of the world, because they can do it how they want, but we try to operate lean, not only in the sense that, like, we're high efficiency and, but that we don't have, bloated hierarchies and frameworks that are unnecessary. So, like, regularly throughout the year, we have an org chart and a kind of a tree structure of who does what's on each person's plate, and who answers to who, and who's responsible for what and everything. But we go through that on a regular basis and really calibrate the connection points and the like-minded um, elements for those, but then also playing to people's strengths. So a lot of times what you see, and I've seen this in my own career, and in fact I've done it this way, but you hire somebody and you try to make them into something they're not. You try to teach them a tool they're not fully comfortable with or even that good at, because that's what the role needs, right? And it makes sense, yeah. But what if we just found people and just leaned into their natural skill and their natural interest and their natural, tendencies of doing things a certain way, and then assess the gaps after that? So that's kind of what we do, is that each person that comes in, it's really more about choosing that person as to whether or not they're a cultural fit. And yes, they need to bring some of the skills, but if they're a culture fit and they bring the base level skills or talents that we need, we find a home for them and we build kind of the structure around them. And then we address the gaps separately as to whether or not that's something that needs to be done right now, if it's something we can teach them, or if those gaps just slide over to somebody else who's, more adept to taking on that task. So right now we're about 22 people, and we started out, it was me plus part timers and, that kind of a thing. But what we're doing now in the last 2.5, 3 years is not, it's not necessarily about the number anymore. Because I think that was, from an agency perspective, people were like, well, you need to add this position or this position. And it was about taking it from 10 to 12 and 12 to 15 to 15 to 20 and so on. For me now, it's about sustaining kind of the size of team we have, but converting the part timers to full timers and the full timers to, so we're trying to basically become more efficient and, get more out of the people that we do have, to build a stronger unit and and a stronger partnership within the company.
Now, how do you really build leadership within the team? If you have a small team like 22 people, then uh, first thing that people ask is, how do I grow when the agency is growing? So, how do you really make sure that everyone is happy and growing within the team?
Um, Good question, but how we view it is we have a very linear tree structure because we're all at the same level. Like, I think naturally they're going to look at me as the owner as well. Then he's at a higher level or whatever. And I get where they, where that comes from. And I can even get where somebody with 2 years experience probably looks up to somebody with 10 years experience. We have that natural hierarchy thing in us. But as far as the team goes, as far as like the pay, the structure, it's very linear in that I'm no different than the people that work for me. We're all at the same level and they can call me out. They can actually give me things to do if they want. Like, hey, Mike, I need you to help me with this and I need it by Friday. No problem. And then I jump to it. So, like, we're very linear in our mindset as far as like the leadership skills and the leadership tendencies that either I have or even certain members of the team might have. Not that those don't naturally come out and the project managers kind of lead the developers and or designers, but like there is that element to it. But as far as like a straight up leadership growth chart, how you're going to get from here to here, it doesn't exist because we're all at the same level. And I
Awesome. So that's a unique structure to have. Mostly, people focus more on the hierarchies to drive an organization. So it's really refreshing to hear something different. Then, so this first part is more about the team. Now, let's talk about the clients. So you said you keep onboarding the client that matches with your purpose and the vision. How do you really communicate this to your client when they are initially discussing with you? Of course, they come up with load of packages. They have been hunted by other agencies. They, some of them have been served well, some of them had a very bad experience in past. So when you talk about building long term relationships, how do you really communicate that in the first initial calls to the client, and how do you make sure that it stays there when they are working with you on a regular basis?
I think they, whether they've had a history of agency experience or business or whatever, I think it's pretty obvious upon the onset in the fact that we have a very casual and simple onboarding process. We try not to overcomplicate it. We try not to give them too many hoops to jump through. We try not to, it's a very transparent and conversational process to get to know who they are so that they can get to know who we are. The challenge that we run into sometimes is that, onboarding clients or even employees, it's a lot like it's a lot like a first date or a job interview. Everybody comes with the right answers. Everybody everybody's very accepting of, oh, this is refreshing, and we all love it, right? But it isn't until, week 2, week 3, week 4 when people start to kind of settle in and show their true selves. And that's why our onboarding process is important to us, because we don't want to get to that week 3 and 4 mark and figure out, oh, we had one slip through the cracks. Now we got to do something about it. So we try to really, stress that, like, we got to get to know these people in the first couple meetings as much as we can, so that we're super transparent and super aligned with how we work as a company and what they can expect from us. Um, so it's a challenge. It's not easy. I'm making it sound easier than it is, um, but that's just part of our process. And yeah, sometimes people slip through the cracks. Maybe we read the room wrong, and we had one that got in that shouldn't have, and sometimes we're just not a good fit. And I will say too that a lot of people who have had agency experiences, even if they have had bad ones, they like routine, right? So they like to come and almost feel the same process because it's familiar to them and it makes them feel comfortable, even if the outcome was bad. So we have to remind them of that sometimes, that, if you've had bad experiences, just know we're not going down that road. So I know it might feel comfortable for you to feel a certain way or have certain checkpoints along the way, but we have a different cadence, and you're just gonna have to trust us. And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
Awesome. So I was interviewing Frederick Wallace, I think 2 weeks ago, and we were discussing about AI and upcoming technologies. And he referred to one of the quote from Sam Altman, the founder of ChatGPT. He said that 90% of agencies would be out of business in 5 years. Now, this is one of the things that most founders would definitely have it on mind. Now, when it comes to technology and something like AI, how do you personally and as an agency stay ahead in terms of industry trends while maintaining your vision and maintaining your relationships in the industry?
Um, in regards to AI, I think it's a tool to be leveraged. I've obviously met with a lot of different people in the agency world and even the creative world that some are very anti AI. Like they don't want anything to do with it. They don't want to touch it. Comments like that from the founder, it's scary. For me, it's these industries, they change all the time, and technologies and evolution, it's going to happen no matter what. It's just a matter of how do you kind of lean into it, embrace it, find ways to utilize it, find ways to stay on top of it to the point where you can kind of adjust and pivot if needed. Now, I don't think AI is going anywhere. I think it's going to continue to grow. And I do think it is a disruptor. There's no question about that. But what you choose to do with it, or how you figure out how to leverage it, that's the key. And I think the other side of this whole AI kind of scarcity mindset that's out there is we haven't seen, kind of the ripple effects take hold yet. We haven't found or seen how the social media platforms or the search engines, or they're dabbling themselves at this point. They're embracing it, but they're dabbling themselves at this point. And they haven't developed their countermeasures to how AI is going to disrupt SEO, or how it's going to disrupt the algorithm within uh, the social media platforms on how to monetize, what these platforms are putting out there for ad solutions. And there's just a lot of stuff that's not there yet. And does that realign things and fix the problem for the future? I don't know, but I think it definitely creates a ripple effect. So kind of riding this AI train and figuring out how to embrace it, leverage it, and just accept it to a degree. I think that's all we can really do right now, but it's cool. I mean, if you've played around with AI at all, like there's a lot of upside to it as well. Like I know there's some
True.
gray area and there's some very anti AI mindset around it, but if you've played around with it, you can see the potential pretty easily. It doesn't take long. And all of a sudden you're
True.
like, man, this is pretty amazing.
True, Mike. So, 9 year is a very long time in any business, and there might be pivotal or disrupting moments like the one that we are discussing with AI in past as well. And for the purpose of my audience, would you like to share some example or story around how do you really overcome something as challenging as AI that we are going to see in future? So maybe some insights from your past that can really help my audience.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're starting a business and you're trying to, cultivate something that's unique and in alignment with who you are, and it's an authentic brand and those kinds of things, it's a matter of sticking to that plan and finding ways to remind yourself why it is you started in the first place and stick to that path. I think the biggest thing that I've seen in 9 years in running in entrepreneurial circles and doing networking and different things like that is we get spun up in these cash grabs, or we get spun up with an idea that's not ours. Like somebody pitches you an idea of, hey, how you could make some money, and all of a sudden you get spun up in somebody else's concept, and all of a sudden you're 2 steps, 3 steps, 4 steps off your path. And then when that fails, you got 4 steps to get back to your path. And if you do that enough times and you lose that money or fail and whatever, there's a psychological damage that happens because it's your confidence. Sometimes it's financial loss that you can't recover. Sometimes you've pivoted your business in a way where I don't know if I can pivot it back to where I was, or I gave up those clients that I had for the ones over here that have now failed, or like, so as a business owner, stick to your path. Calibrate often, ask yourself a lot of questions, and if you're true to that and if you're consistent to that, I mean, you stand a much better chance of success because you're very kind of hyper aware of your do's, your don'ts, and why you did this in the first place. And it's tempting. I will throw that out there that um, cash grabs are tempting. Like taking the wrong client because they have money is tempting. Um, Leaning into AI and reinventing your business to try to cash in on that, it's tempting. Same with cryptocurrencies and uh, all the different things that we've seen here in the last couple of years. It's all tempting, but you have to maintain your original path, your vision, and your goals, so you know where to come back to if things don't work out.
So one of the thing that you talked about is staying on your path. So you need certain measurement or metrics to really know that you are sticking to your path. In your business or your agency, what metrics you really track by heart, and how do you make sure that those metrics are communicating the real path for your agency to yourself and to your team?
Yeah, I mean, in the marketing world, yeah, there's no end of metrics, right? So we're looking at all of them. We're looking at website metrics and click through rates, and we're looking at all our metrics on social media. Like, so we're looking at stuff all the time for different reasons, depending on what kind of conclusion we're trying to draw or what we're trying to figure out. But I think as far as the big metric, the one that I look at the most and the one I track the most and the one that drives the most decision within Cyberdogz is client retention, overall client satisfaction. Are they happy? Are we doing good work? Like those are the things that I look at. So when I look at like the last, we're, like I said, we're in our ninth year. When I look at our last 9 years, and we've been churning through, just under 100 clients a year, and we retain 15 to 20 of them month over month, and we've only lost, and I'm not doing the math right now, but if you add all that up, and we've lost less than 10 clients in 9 years, that's the metric that tells me that we're on the right track and we're doing more things right than wrong.
Okay, so again, I come back to that same 9 year formula. Being in business for 9 years, there must be a lot of challenging moments. And one of the challenges when you, especially when you lose the client or team member over certain disagreements, how do you really adjust yourself in such moments? How do you really come up with something that is inspiring for the team in challenging moments like this?
I'll be honest, in those moments, I'm not trying to inspire the team. I'm trying to take a lesson from it, because here's what happens. Most of these situations, when you lose a client or lose a team member, the natural instinct is to blame that person. Well, they weren't the right fit, or they didn't follow the rules, or that's what we want to do. We want to tear that person apart so that we feel good about it. And for me, it's like, no, it takes two to tango. And yeah, that person might not have drank the Kool-Aid, or they might not have understood, or maybe it just wasn't a good alignment. But what I go back to the team with, and my team can, they could vouch for me on this. What did we do wrong? What could we have done differently? Why did Let's just say that was the wrong kind of client. We clearly failed them by letting them in the door and not seeing them for who they were. So even if we want to put some blame on the client, we played a part in it. So we got to be better, you know? Did we try hard enough? Did we hit home runs? Did we communicate effectively? Like, don't get me wrong, I want my team to be happy and confident and whatnot, but I don't coddle them in that way, because if our goal is to, to aspire to or chase excellence, then we have to look at ourselves first. The first thing that we do when we find ourselves in a situation like that, the first thing we do is look in the mirror.
Awesome. So you seem to be very happy with where you are right now. Uh, any particular idea on the future plans for your agency and for yourself personally?
Yeah, I mean, I want to continue to grow. I think right now, like I'm into growth, don't get me wrong, but right now I'm more focused on calibration. How do we squeeze a little bit more excellence out of the people we have? How do we become more efficient? How do we be better than we were yesterday? That's kind of the mindset I'm in right now, because to be honest, we've added a lot of people in the last year and a half. So bringing on these new people and trying to teach them up to where we're at as a company and all those things, it just seems natural for me that we're going to spend time on calibration and figuring out who we are and locking in that culture, so that when we're presumably at least done with that phase, it'll never be done, but at least when we decide to move on to the next thing, we're going to be that much stronger. But as far as where do we go after that, I want to continue to not only do good work and take care of the clients we have, but I want to do bigger work. I want to, I had once worked with, bigger brands in a previous life and whatnot. And my goal is to try to get back to there, under this flag. So, we'll chase bigger work. We'll try to do bigger things and just kind of keep having fun. I mean, because that's what all this is about. And that's why we started the company in the first place.
That's inspiring, Mike, really. And good luck for that.
Yeah. Thank
Now,
you.
as far as the industry goes and the future of agency goes, how do you see it playing in near future?
Well, I mean, honestly, first and foremost, I think it's already changed a lot just from the whole COVID 2020 thing. I think bloated agencies and those who had, too many people on their teams, or maybe they just, some agencies only have, they'll have one or two or three really big clients, and that basically cash flows the whole agency to a degree. Well, I don't know the number, but there were a lot of agencies that didn't make it through 2020 and through COVID. And for those reasons, that's, a big reason as to why, which is, it's unfortunate and it's kind of sad. And a lot of people lost their jobs, and, a lot of businesses went under in that time frame. But I think the lesson to be learned there is to, you got to take care of all of the clients, not just the big ones. You got to take care of the small ones. You got to take care of your people, and you have to build something that people can rally around and kind of form strength. It's like if you take one twig, you can snap it pretty easy, but if you take a handful of twigs, it's tough to break it. And I think that concept or that mindset is similar in the agency world. Um, I think running an agency is going to get, I don't want to say more difficult, but it's going to have to evolve, because you have a different group of creatives coming up with different demands and different work ethics, and I mean, AI, and there's so many things that are changing the game right now, that I again, kind of like that business path advice. I think you have to be really clear on who you are as an agency, what you expect, what you want to do, and what your path is. If you plan to sustain that and go strong into the future, I think the whole idea of, in somewhat, the traditional agency mindset, the $9 coffees and bean bags and like the way it used to be at times, I don't think that's going to last. We have to evolve.
Mike, is it a good time to start a new agency? What would be your advice for somebody who is thinking on this idea right now?
I think it's a good time to start any business if you're really clear on what you want and what you want to do, and if you're authentic about it. Even the clients that come to us for branding and, that kind of advice or consulting, is that you have to build something you're truly vested in and you're truly aligned with. And I know authenticity in the marketing world is kind of a, it's an overused term to some degree, but if you really break it down and be true to it, whether you're starting a mom and pop restaurant or a marketing agency or whatever, I think if you can, build your foundation on your passion for that particular business and how you go out in the world and service your customers and take care of clients, you stand a far better chance of success than trying to build something that is just about cash grab. I mean, you see it, like, just as an example, you see it in the real estate world all the time. Like, people hear, oh, real estate's hot or whatever, and I have a friend that makes $100,000 a year, so I'm going to go out and sell houses now. And then all of a sudden they don't. They're they're like, man, that's way harder than I thought it was. And it's like, it is probably, but also the guy that you saw making it look easy, he's vested in it and he's drinking the Kool-Aid, and it's somewhere inherently close to who he is as a person. And there's a reason why he's better at it maybe than you are. It's because you're not as bought into it as he is, and you went there for the wrong reasons. And I would say that that mindset is true for any industry. So yeah, I mean, if you're going to start a business, do something that you feel like you can get behind and take a risk with, because it's not that big of a risk if you know you love it that much. Does that make sense?
True. It make perfect sense. And Mike, this is one of the longest episode I recorded so far. Usually my episodes are around 30 minutes or below that, but I think we were so engrossed in chatting, and I was just completely lost into what you were sharing. So I think this comes to an end to our discussion. Thank you so much for joining us. Would you be kind enough to just appeal for my audience to just subscribe to my channel? Just say something that motivates them to stay subscribed and stay listening uh, to new episodes.
Yeah. I think it's super important if you're listening to podcasts like this that you subscribe, follow, listen, share. And if you're somebody who's networking and collaborates with other professionals, turn them on to podcasts like this. And here's why, is because obviously it grows the podcast, it gets the message out there and all those good things. But guys like you, like me, whoever else, they're investing time into putting this content out there and bringing people like us together and having these conversations. So I know we kind of take it for, I do it all the time. I listen to podcasts and I take it for granted. I don't go back. I don't follow, like, share, comment, or listen. And then when somebody calls me out on it, I'm like, yeah, I do that too. So don't be like me. Go out there, like, follow, share, and contribute to the growth of podcasts, because they're great. So
Thank you, Mike. And guys, I don't have to say any more because Mike has already appealed. And do subscribe to my channel, as I'm bringing some very, very insightful ideas and guests from people like Mike who have truly made 10x so far. We would to we would love to listen to their stories and learn from them. So I look forward to having you as my audience. So do subscribe, stay connected, stay happy, and keep growing like Mike. Thank you so much, Mike. It was really wonderful chatting with you, and look forward to have you again in future, maybe in coming years
yeah,
when my
sounds
podcast
good.
grows. All right. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye.
Thanks.